Excellent.
All right. Welcome to another Cleverly Changing podcast. We are excited today because for the grown folks section, we have a homeschool graduate talking to us today. His name is Sly the Deuce, and so we're going to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. Can you all see and hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Excellent, excellent. Again, thank you both for having me. As you mentioned, I am a graduate of homeschool, which really means that my mom is the real MVP, right? If she put up with me all that time. So I have a huge love for it, a huge passion for it. I've definitely gone on to do some amazing things, but I don't know if I would have honestly been able to do them in the normal schooling track. So if we talk about that a little bit, I'm definitely more than willing to open that can of worms with you all and see where the conversation goes. I just finished writing a book recently, and I also have written a little ebook for a creative guide, sort of unlocking some of that creativity that I know many members of our community have. So once again, it's so great to be here, and thank you all for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you. So I am Elle. This is Miriam. So a little bit about our show is that we are a homeschool podcast, but it's not just for homeschoolers. It's for any parent who wants to supplement their child's education. And so with this interview, we want families to understand that there are benefits to homeschooling, but it's not the only way. So as you share your story with us, we want to help empower parents so that they can empower their kids. The fact that you are an author, you are a creative person, you are a musician, you are a homeschool student is just a testament that parents, the way that they interact with their kids is so important, and it can help change their trajectory of their lives. And so our first question for you is, what are some of the greatest strengths that you learned while you were homeschooled?
While I was homeschooled, I definitely feel like it taught me time management as a youngster. I think that when I got to college, I realized like, oh wait, this is just time management all day, every day. But I've kind of seen this before, because when you have self-paced study, it's interesting because you're excited about working or reading or learning or creating, but you realize like, wow, I've only got so much time in the day to read, or I've only got so much time for my science project. And so you start learning how to structure your time and make time for the right things. So, I mean, there was definitely a lot of lessons, and just wanted to go back. I loved what you said about empowering both sides. I was not homeschooled exclusively, so I definitely know what it's like to go to a charter school, go to like I said, went to university. So there's definitely strengths in both sides. But I think that most I learned time management, because it's kind of you sometimes. There's really not like a whole sea of faces you could just follow in the lunchroom, like, oh, I guess class is starting. You have to kind of really be on top of it yourself.
Well, how long were you homeschooled, since you did a mix of traditional school and homeschool?
So elementary school, let's see, first and second, I was at a public school. Third and fourth, I went to a charter school. Fifth, sixth, seventh, homeschooled. Eighth grade, homeschooled. Ninth grade, charter school. 10th grade, charter school. 11th grade, 12th grade, homeschooled.
Oh. So when you were going back and forth, was this your choice, or did mom and dad say, all right, you gotta go?
Both. So they were never putting me out, should I say, but there were times where the different schools, they would fit and sometimes they didn't, and so it was always like you're never going to be forced into a schooling system. If it doesn't work truly for your learning style. It's not like, oh, I don't like the teacher, bring me back home. But if your learning style is truly not allowing you to tap into your full potential, we won't, force that upon you. But at the same time, there's no reason, that you can't be out meeting with like-minded folks. And a lot of times I would be, say, registered with the local schools, like the local middle school or the local high school. So I would still be a part of the sports teams and things like that. So I still was a member of the community. So that allowed for easier transitions as well.
Well, that's awesome.
Indeed. Do they allow us to do that?
So we are in Maryland. For people who are listening all over the nation, we are in Maryland, and in Maryland, they don't currently allow for parents who homeschool to also keep their kids in traditional sports classes with the public school. They just don't allow that. If you have a special relationship with a private school, that's something that you could probably work out, but not with the public school system. So that's what's a little different here.
Go ahead and holler at your Boys and Girls Club, your local Y or something. And
Shout out the Boys and Girls Club. Yep.
Yeah, the people here, there's a lot of community centers that they have here, and they're usually connected with the schools. So
Okay.
you can sign up for community center programs, and our tax dollars help make those programs very affordable and very cheap. So that's how we get to supplement our kids' education. So it's not completely free like a public school sort of sports system, so you would pay to participate, and it's open to all different types of families.
Wow.
they have actually pretty good programs.
They do.
Yeah. My youngest daughter is going to be starting ice skating this evening, and then I think next week or the week after, sewing for my oldest. So hey.
So hey.
Yeah, so we try to utilize them, but it's not quite the same as, public school. So it won't all be the same kids. It'll be based on where you live versus, what school you're attending.
Awesome.
So our next question is, you sometimes refer to yourself on your site, I visited your site, as a nerd. And I know that term, for some kids, it can be, a positive term in some families, but for some, it may be a term that they kind of shy away from. So in your position, you were definitely using it in a positive aspect. And so I want you to kind of describe why you feel like nerd. You've kind of redefined that word for yourself.
Yeah.
And can you kind of share why you've done that?
Well, to your point, I think that it's about the perception of the word. I think that I'm a huge comic book fan, right? And I mean, the Hulk, Bruce Banner is a serious geek. Like they're very, and I mean that in extremely intelligent and okay with that. I think that coming up where I came up and how I came up, it was very easy to have your clothing or your parents' vehicle be the source of pride, right? You're young, I got the new Dunks, you don't have the Dunks, or you're wearing Shaqs. That was sort of how it was coming up. And so I got called Steve Urkel a lot, right? And I would just say like, yeah, but that guy's on TV, right? Like, who doesn't want to be somebody on primetime TV, And so just trying to take every situation and make the most of it. And again, I can't say that I was always this seasoned adult before you now. So my mom was a huge part of that, and she would say things like that I'm saying to you now, right? Like, aren't some of your comic book heroes like really, really smart? And like, isn't that what makes them so cool? Or she would show me, people in magazines and things like that. And she would, express to me like, this is the result of studying, or this is the result of being really smart. Look, you can have a Maserati or a Porsche if you want, but that man's a lawyer, and you got to be really smart to be a lawyer. And so she would, talk to me like that as a youth, and it really just gave me something to hold on to be honest. Again, as a young person, it's very easy to feel vulnerable and feel like, where do I fit in? And I think that when you don't just find happiness and positivity in what you got, then you can kind of start chasing some things that aren't really you. And so it's important to never dim that light, I would say, because even and I'm not in any way proposing that a bunch of kids go download a bunch of gangster movies, but I'm saying that, you know, how even in the street movies that they would glorify, Nino Brown wasn't no dummy. You know, you had to be very intelligent to make it to the top of whatever you're going to do. And so I just really want to hone in on that message and not shy away from it as well. I think that it's something that kind of gets tucked under the rug, or again, people, they are very intelligent, but then they express it as like, oh, well, now I'm well paid. Oh, well, now I'm well dressed. Now I'm, you know, taken care of in that kind of regard. And I really, really want to celebrate the people that are, you know, holding it down in the library.
I love what you just said, you touched on something that I think a lot of homeschoolers often face, and that's, you know, awkwardness. Because I think one thing that people who don't homeschool, they often are afraid of homeschooling because with homeschoolers, there's an awkwardness that's sometimes associated with it. Mm-hmm. And I love how you say your mom really taught you to embrace your differences. And that isn't always celebrated in a public school setting, because sometimes it can be, you know, I want everybody to kind of be different versions of each other, and that's what makes you popular, right? You know?
Yeah.
And so I think by you owning that and celebrating yourself and, you know, your intelligence, yeah, you're right. People that are out there, you know, doing their business, they, you know, what some people would call hustlers, they're out there, they're doing their business, they're entrepreneurs, they have some business skills and business mind concepts that are in their mind that, you know,
maybe they didn't have to learn at Stanford.
Right. It's innate within them. It's an innate skill that they possess. And so, you know, to recognize that and say, hey, I recognize these are my skills, but I'm going to choose to do this versus I feel like I only have one option and I have to do this. Because a lot of times the people are very intelligent and they know that they're intelligent, mm-hmm. but they feel like they don't have options.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like your parents gave you the wherewithal that you have options.
Yeah, it was definitely a blessing, and you touched on something that was, I think, very powerful when you spoke about trying to be different versions of ourselves or of the same person. And I realized young, I'm socially awkward. I tell people that now. I'm like, I'm so socially awkward, and they say like, you know, you seem so gregarious, and I say, but you have to understand, there's so many times when a conversation will come up and somebody will say, you know, oh, Ghost died, and I'm like, who's Ghost? And they're like, you don't know who Ghost is? You know, and all of a sudden you're not cool. I still deal with that to this day, but being able to just say, no, I don't, but I mean, he seems like a very exciting character. You know, tell me about him. Just being able to roll with the punches and not tuck my tail and go, I don't have stars, and now I'm sad and crushed and broken. But I'm just saying that there's a lot of times when you realize, and this isn't a judgment, but I realize with homeschoolers and some of the folks that I met transitioning through school like I did, there is a lot of social thought, groupthink, where it's not really individual thought. It's like if you're not tuned into mainstream sports, you're kind of out of the club. And that's not a negative to be in any way, you know, into sports or engaged in sports, but it did allow for me to have a deeper understanding, I think, of myself. And then my actual friendships, I think, are deeper and based more on who we are as people, as opposed to we all just happened to see the same primetime TV show last night. It's the talk of the town. And our friendships kind of just grow that way. I think that it's allowed for some deeper and more meaningful relationships, in my opinion.
Right, that makes perfect sense. Because when you, I guess jumping back to the whole nerd thing and embracing yourself and your intelligence and not being ashamed of it or trying to dumb down to make someone else feel comfortable or to make someone else want to be in your presence. It just gives encouragement, you know, for a lot of the younger people to see folk like yourself that are in a position of making it and being socially accepted.
Yeah.
No, they may not be up on the latest TV shows and all the rest of that kind of thing. Because it's not, I mean, it's not that important.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna lie, I know who goes this. He loves the show. But, and he'll say to me, oh, you don't want to watch this? I'm like, I don't really care. I don't want me to watch it. Would I choose to watch it? No. I'm going to sit there and read this book.
There you go. There you go.
So, and it all goes back to just being comfortable enough with yourself and your own likes and dislikes, and,
Yes.
and embracing that and keeping it close. You know, no one can make you feel ashamed of
Exactly.
what it
Exactly.
is that you enjoy and what you don't enjoy. And this doesn't make you know any less of a socialite or anything like that.
No, not at all. Great question. Great question.
I don't at all.
But I love how you talk about being socially awkward, but it's not a bad thing. Like, you can be socially awkward and that can be okay because that's you.
Yeah.
So being different, being unique is totally okay. And I think sometimes when people worry about their kid,
That's what they're worried about. They're worried
not
about
okay.
their child not being accepted for who they are.
Right.
Yeah.
Not embracing
They,
their
as a
differences.
parent, may not have
They may not be
able
comfortable.
to embrace their own individuality, and they're kind of pushing that on their children. I'm not saying that if you don't want to homeschool your children, that is your problem.
Right.
But I think for a lot of people whose main
Who mentioned socially awkward.
yeah, their main dissent on homeschooling is, what about socialization and what about being weird and all that?
I've got a song.
Everybody's weird in their own way. Let's be for real.
There
I-
is no
Right.
I've got a song called Earhole, and I say that same very thing. You know, they say, you know that you weird, bro? I say, yes, I'm a certified weirdo. I'm probably somebody that you shouldn't be near, though, unless you're trying to let me inside of your ear hole. Because, like, you know, if you're hanging around with me, this ain't going to be no, let's just talk about what you saw on TV last night. I might mess around and ask you something like, so what's your greatest fear, bud? You know, we might end up having a real conversation, you know, and so it's just about, again, owning that and taking that. And I really would say the weirdness and the awkwardness turns into creativity. It turns into vision. It turns into, you know, that time to really, really let your imagination blossom. And when you can see the adult side of it, everybody, not everybody, I don't want to say everybody, but a lot of people, you know, they'll say, oh, wow, look at that guy, or look at these two hosts. They're doing it full time. That's so amazing. How did they ever? Well, it was years ago, seeds of self-confidence, seeds of the willingness to be alone with your own thoughts. And every time you're alone, it doesn't mean someone's ostracizing me. Or every time you make a decision to be at home studying, it doesn't mean, man, think of all the parties I didn't get invited to, right? So when you take ownership of it, then you can say, think of all the parties that I turned down tonight, right? Like, I have to read. I have something to do tonight. The Oscars are on tonight and I'm not even watching them. You know, you can have your own swag with it if you want to.
Right. That is a perfect segue for our next question, which is, how did homeschooling nurture your creative process? So you just, you know, did a little freestyle of your, you know, you're a musician and you rap. So, you know, how did you even recognize that you have that gift? Did you recognize it while you were homeschooling?
Now that's interesting. I actually started making music as a defense mechanism. I was overweight, I had glasses, I had asthma, and again, I wasn't in the socialization swing of everything. So I would just be the kid who pops up on the neighborhood team, you know, pops up at the swim meet. Somehow he's at all the events, but we never see him in school. So there was sort of a weird, you know, paradigm that I had as a kid in the community. And I would get made fun of a lot, you know, teased, things like that, especially for my intelligence, right? And so once I started to, I really would sit and like calculate jokes, because then they really messed up. And so I started trying to figure out how I could be wittier than, the next kid. And just being a little kid, it's easier to remember something if it rhymes. And so if you tell a rhyme on the schoolyard, it gets extra laughs, right? Which is extra points. And so that naturally, I think, just evolved into my young teen years as, battle rap. We would start, joshing on each other, playing the dozens with rhymes over the table, blah, 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 blah. And then it was like, wow, you're really good. And some of my teachers took interest. And so my first public performance was actually for the mayor. It was for Martin Luther King Day. And so we had a Martin Luther King Day rap. And so my teacher really tried to drive home, you can take this art form and it doesn't have to be used to tear down, your brother. And so that was a really, really powerful. Once I realized, because I definitely could tear him down. Once I realized, wow, I can use this same power to build someone up, and they may not even notice, but I can plant some positive seeds in there. And then, like I said, my first performance, I was 14 and I was at a college university. So, that stage and that level was like, oh my God, it was just, it was a big deal. And I thought I definitely want to keep doing this.
Awesome. It sounds like you're so wise. Because you do a lot of deep thinking. Yeah, there's a depth of thought that you don't often find in people. And it sounds like, the fact that you were young and you were like, well, I don't have to tear down people. I can uplift them. That is just wisdom.
Yeah.
There's really no other way to say it.
Yeah, so my mother did child care growing up, and the name of her child care was the Golden Rule Family Daycare, right? I would treat your family like I would treat mine. And so a lot of that wisdom, again, comes from her and my father. And I had experienced, unfortunately, what it's like to be torn down. So yes, I had built this little fortress for myself, but then I started to realize it wasn't just a shield, it was starting to become a sword. I was starting to now become the bully, and I knew full well I didn't enjoy those feelings, and I didn't want to share those feelings. I didn't want to be putting those feelings on others, especially because people think bullies are dumb. I couldn't have that.
I love that you use your adversity into strengthening your gift. I think just the dichotomy of those two things is just brilliant. It's like, but how many people understand that they possess that within themselves? Not too many people.
Yeah, it takes a lot. I can't lie. I was talking just the other week about how in summer camp in grade school, and we was all joning on each other, and I said something really mean to this one young man. And I ain't gonna lie, it was mean, and I knew it was mean when he said it. But he was crying, and I kind of got reprimanded. I'm a little bit of a rebel, and I really didn't care.
You?
After seeing, I have authority issues. So I did end up apologizing because I could see he was really, really hurt.
Yeah.
And I realized in that incident, just how much power my voice and my words have. And I don't think I ever played, lessons and joning on anybody quite as hard as I did that day. Because I could see the
ramifications.
Yeah. And I could tell he was really.
You hurt that boy.
I did. And it was what I said was completely unnecessary. I'm not going to share. I think that for those who pay attention, who are more observant, that they recognize more of the impact that they have on people and the world, and just the ripple effect that moves.
Yes.
Because it's real. A lot of people don't think that the whole energy concept is a real concept, but it is.
It's so real. I mean, it's so real. It's surreal, as my friend would say.
I like that too. So our next question is, what did you study when you were in college? Because you said you graduated 12th grade from homeschool, and I know a lot of homeschool parents. We've done 2 episodes on the transition from homeschool to college? Because some people don't even see that as a possibility because you often don't get a diploma. But it sounds like, you know, you took your knowledge and you were able to get into a traditional university. Can you kind of just share a little bit how that transition was for you and what you ended up studying?
Yeah, so the way that we got around that, if anybody's interested, again, we use some very creative techniques. So I was already done with my coursework for 12th grade, and then second semester of 12th grade, literally just enough to say I signed up, I registered at like a local school and graduated. So I was able to get a, you know, prestigious high school in the area. I was able to show I had attended classes. I had to take, you know, English and math, whatever the core classes, I had to take them again. But I just took college prep level. And so that entire time we were just preparing for the college entrance and things like that. So to answer your question, what did I study? So I originally studied psychology, and then I figured out that psychology with a paycheck is called marketing. So I transferred over to marketing.
I like that. I like that. See,
Yeah.
yes,
I like it.
Absolutely. So I did a dual major, marketing and management, with a focus on with a minor in philosophy.
Oh, interesting. I definitely, just in talking to you, I think that so fits, you know, and I definitely don't know you all that well, but just from the conversation that we hear today, I can see it. I can see it all.
See how we're weaving together.
Nice.
Quilt here. It's very it's sensible, because it's indeed that is how marketing works. They
Yes.
play on the thought processes that your average human has.
Yeah.
We're all about the ethos and how can we play on these emotions to get a specific response out of you.
So I actually took it defensively. It's funny you say that, because I specifically took it so that I could guard against it, so that I could know when I'm being marketed to, so that I could share with my community. I could share, hey, this is just, you know, the Hegelian dialectic or whatever. And they say, what's that mean? I said, they playing you. It ain't, don't buy the hype. You know, it's not what it looks like. And so at the same time, it can empower me as well. You know, I've learned public relations. I've learned how to put